Sorry. I don't sell my silence.
Real Pains is an American comedy drama television series that ran on the USA Network from 2009 to 2016. The series stars Mark Feuerstein, I should figure out how to say that, I'm sorry, Mark. Mark Feuerstein as Dr. Henry Hank Lawson, or just Hank to everybody, who isn't his brother and, well, eventually his father when we meet him. He's an ER doctor, and I've seen videos online that kind of question, is he a cardiologist, is he a surgeon? Not really the point, because this is fictional, about as fictional as these medical shows get. But he plays a ER doctor who's fired from his job after letting a wealthy donor die, and instead saving the life of a kid at his hospital, which, again, leads to him getting fired, leads to his fiancée leaving him, and leads him into a big, sweeping depression. All of this in episode 1. Before I start rambling on about the plot, because, I mean, the plot is the plot, and there are very, very odd shakeups that I would encourage you to, hop on Netflix, give the show a try before it's gone, because I don't know where it's going next, but it's a really good show that I don't want to see swept under the rug.
7B, take one!
So, something I want to get out of the way. I don't really like medical shows. They just kind of bore me. They're always hospitals mixed in with little family and romantic drama, stuff like that. But Real Pains isn't always set in a hospital. In fact, it's rarely in a hospital. We get to see these beautiful beaches and houses and estates and some of the most beautiful parts of the Hamptons, things they never really would have even considered being part of a medical show. And we get to see that Hank isn't just a talented doctor, he's resourceful. Makeshift hooks and scalpels and totally unrealistic ways to, and probably unsanitary ways. We see them clean their materials, but some of these things that they show and how they will deal with some of the medical issues, I do think are incredibly inaccurate and fictional. But what is interesting is that the show more so likes to talk about rarer types of conditions, more so than it is about you can do XYZ, because if you have one of these rare conditions, go to a hospital. You're probably not going to be looking for a cool annuity concierge doctor to deal with these sometimes very serious medical conditions, and how point A could have gotten to point B. If a chick's partying this often in this environment with her friends, they would probably know what to do if this was just a regular overdose, right? But if there's something different going on, and she's not reacting to regular treatment, there might be something else there. Hank's brother, Evan, is played by Paulo Constanza, who I recently found out was in the Animorphs 90s show, so that's hilarious. The two have a dichotomy I'm sure several siblings share, especially when one's younger and one's older, but while where Hank is often a lot more serious and by the books, Evan's not afraid to go outside of the books and be a little bit more light and funny. But this also leads to some early characterization of him being a womanizer, something that does phase out rather early in the show. Evan's role as CFO, and not just, being the brother who pitched the idea and whatnot, he is an accountant, he does know business, and despite how wacky he and kind of stupid he can be, this guy is very well read when it comes to business. Reshma Shetty plays the incredibly talented, intelligent, and dare I say beautiful Divya Gadare. She becomes Hank's physician's assistant, and she also is someone who pitches the idea of becoming a concierge doctor and how that could really benefit the Hamptons. The thing I enjoy about Divya is that she does come from wealth, and while we do see that she has this bit of arrogance about her and Evan sort of take on this sort of brother-sister role that I'm so glad never turns into a romance, she's an incredibly interesting character who has a lot of depth, and we don't only see her as a we don't only just see her being a physician. Why can't I say this word? Holy crap. We don't just see Divya being the physician's assistant. We see her having her own struggles and her coming from a traditional Indian family. One of the early issues she goes through is letting her family know that she just doesn't want to do this shit. She's not ready to get married, even though her and her betrothed are someone she's known for quite some time and is even a close friend with. But we get to see the depth that she goes through in making her own decisions and what she wants to do with her own life. Well, in the Hamptons, we are also introduced to Boris. Boris is a German businessman and has a lot of interesting secrets that really get unveiled throughout the entire series. And he flip-flops between being a recurring and a main character, something I really like in series that last for more than a few seasons. Rounding out what I would call the principal cast for Season 1 is Jill Flint as Jill Casey. super original guys. Sometimes Jill feels a little odd, but Jill's the administrator at the hospital in Hampton's Heritage, where most of the series takes place. So while her character has use, I do think sometimes she goes in and out of being, she's this female character who's strong and independent and can do her own thing, and to being, she's just kind of Hank's girlfriend and we don't really care what's going on unless they're having their little on and off again thing. What helps is that Jill Flint is incredibly charismatic in this role, and her and Mark have some incredible, chemistry. She has chemistry with the rest of the main principal cast. I really enjoyed when she was on screen. Never felt like she was wasting time, but I do feel like there's drama that tends to happen just because she's the romantic interest. Another highlight that I do want to reference, and something that really shocked me, is that Evan, when he quits his womanizing ways, what helps him with his womanizing ways is in season 2, he starts dating a rich girl, and they have this sort of fake relationship that, of course, in typical sitcom television fashion, becomes a real relationship. But Brooke Dorsey as Paige, absolute highlight. Paige never feels like she's stealing screen time or that her storylines are just for drama. We get to see that, yes, her and Evan have incredible chemistry, and Paulo and Brooke really, really bring these two to life. And they're both so funny and cute and witty without being annoying or feeling childish. Paige has, she has wants, she has desires, she has her own goals that are completely separate from the brothers without ever taking too much away from the show. And she, even knowing the Hamptons, brings a lot of intriguing viewpoints to how the brothers, who are more or less foreigners to this environment. So, yeah, I was shocked. Brooke Dorsey, really, really a highlight of this show, and seeing how her character evolves and some of the issues she goes through later in the show, really, really intriguing and sometimes even heartbreaking.
You sick motherfucker.
Another huge highlight that comes in season 4 is the addition of Ben Shankman as a new doctor working for Hank Med as a corporation, because as the show goes on, their organization becomes more well-known. I'm a big Billions fan. As soon as I saw this guy show up, I knew I was in for the long run. Jeremiah Sakani, as far as television, he's very coded as someone who has neurodivergence, somewhere on the autism spectrum, I would say, and he's not very good at reading social cues. And it leads to surprisingly interesting and insightful interactions between him and the rest of the cast, especially him and Divya. Jeremiah, pretty early on, develops this romantic interest in Divya that he doesn't even remotely show, as far as changing up the dynamic, especially while Divya is starting to go through more complex storylines that I think are totally just thrown in because there may have been a lack of female writers, but that's neither here nor there, because the show stays very, very entertaining throughout. Another highlight, I don't know who's watching this, and also watched the crazy prison show Oz on HBO, but something that really endeared me was seeing Lee Tergesen? I don't feel like looking up how these are pronounced. I'm sorry. Seeing Lee Tergesen so early on in the show is really oh man, this show got the actors. Lee Tergesen's an actor who just pops up and stuff, and he never gives a forgettable appearance. Also, he's very handsome. I like seeing him and stuff. Other highlights that I think that'll for people my age. One, Alexa Vega, frickin' Carmen from Spy Kids has not a recurring role, but plays a cute little role in the 4th season. Timothy Chalamet, little babby Timothy Chalamet is in this show. Wow, was not expecting that. Some standouts are Jillian Jacobs from Community, Ezra Miller from, if we know what they've been in. Tom Cavanaugh, probably known from other stuff, but I know him from The Flash, and as someone who wasn't the biggest The Flash fan, he was certainly a highlight in every appearance and every character he plays, because he plays multiple characters, because The Flash is one of those shows. Even Francis Conroy from American Horror Story pops up. And later on in the show, and I'm going to wrap this up, I do find it intriguing that in the last couple seasons of the show, they even tried to touch upon some touchy matters. We get an episode about a transgender female who's having health issues, and it's just interesting seeing not only how she is affected in this world, but seeing how her medical conditions could have gone unnoticed because of her own fear to get checked out, because being a trans woman, especially in the 2010s and previously, could be a death sentence and could lead to negligence as well. So that was interesting to see. Something I really think helped the show later on is the fact that Mark Forrestein does become an executive producer on the show later on, and even directs quite a few episodes later on, as does Paulo Costanzo. And I always like when shows that are on for a little bit get to give the actors that chance to really, impact the storytelling, because these characters are who we're endeared to, so of course let the actors endear what they have learned and put it into the characters and let us see it on screen. While it is a medical drama, it's not afraid to get gross and be a little gory when it needs to be, as medical shows tend to. What I really enjoy about the first few seasons is the ingenuity that Mark.
Vodka, a very sharp, pointed knife, a big pen, a sandwich baggie, and some duct tape.
Sandwich baggie, duct tape. Who are you?
Well, I have watched Royal Pains to completion. I haven't watched I don't like watching pilot episodes very much because they kind of reiterate stuff that gets shown over and over again in the first season of the show, but I watched this whole entire show mostly to completion twice, so there may be some things I missed, but I do want to get those big things that really affected me out of the way.
I want to thank MDTV, Netflix, ABC Network. I hope this doesn't get copyright, but I don't own any of this, so I hope that